Your shadow has followed you from the very beginning, not just across the sidewalks and walls of your life, but through dimensions of time you cannot recall, through dreams you thought were just dreams, and through doors you never noticed opening. You see it in the mirror, behind you in the light, beside you when no one else is there. But what if I told you it is not just a reflection? What if your shadow holds something you lost a long time ago? Not an object, but a spell, a power, a knowing. That was once yours. The spell you forgot is not written in any language you've ever learned, nor whispered in any religion you've been taught. It's older than scripture, older than civilization, and yet it is deeply personal, woven into the unique energy pattern that is you. Your shadow has kept it, protected it, waited faithfully for the moment you would become ready to remember. And maybe that moment is now. Maybe this is the turning of the key. So stay with this video till the end, and if your heart stirs, leave your warmest wish in the comments along with the number 77, a signal to the universe that you're ready for the return, a signal to your shadow that you are listening again. Now like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive deeper. The truth is, wishes begin to come true when you no longer chase the magic, but when you recognize it inside the forgotten corners of your being. When you stop trying to find power and remember that you are the power. This is what your shadow has always known. It remembers when you could bend the winds of fate with a single thought. It remembers when you spoke to the silence and the silence answered. It remembers when the stars shifted for you, not because you asked, but because you believed. And now, after lifetimes of sleeping under the weight of the world, the spell inside you begins to stir. You might feel it as restlessness, as dreams that make no sense, as a sudden ache for things you've never lived. Maybe it's that moment when time feels like it slows down and everything around you fades, and something in your heart says, "You've done this before." These aren't coincidences. They are echoes, threads pulling you toward remembrance. They are your shadow's whispers, asking, "Are you ready now? Can I show you?" And yet there's a reason you forgot. There's a reason it was hidden. The world around you demanded forgetting. It told you magic wasn't real, that your dreams were childish, that inner voices should be silenced. You were taught to fear the darkness, and so you feared your own shadow. But your shadow never feared you. It waited while you grew into a mind that could carry the truth again without shattering. Because this spell, the one you forgot, is not just a tool, it's a door. And once it opens, nothing will ever be the same. It begins with trust. Trust in what cannot be explained. Trust in the chill that runs up your spine when the wind moves just right. Trust in the way your skin remembers what your mouth cannot say. Trust in the moments you feel watched when alone, not by anything outside of you, but by a part of you that's been awake while you slept. The part that never doubted. The part that remembers the symbols, the signs, the sacred sounds that once lit your entire being on fire. You may think this is just metaphor, but it is more real than the ground beneath your feet. Look at how you are drawn to certain numbers, certain patterns, certain images that haunt you. Why do you feel power when you draw spirals, or hear a note you've never been taught, or see a constellation that feels like home? Why do some places feel like they recognize you, even when you've never stood there before? Your shadow knows. It always did. These are keys. They don't belong outside of you. They are meant to unlock the spell buried within. And so we begin the remembering. Start with your breath. Not just the automatic inhale and exhale, but the breath that moves through your thoughts. The breath that carries fragments of stardust and forgotten names. Breathe and listen. Can you hear the silence between the heartbeats? That's where the first syllables hide, the ones that don't sound like any language you know, but still awaken something ancient inside you. That is the edge of the spell. That is the doorway your shadow guards. If you sit quietly enough, if you let your fears settle, you'll start to sense it, that your shadow is not merely shaped by light, it's shaped by memory. It is the imprint of every moment you touched the divine and then forgot. It carries the blueprint of your spirit before the noise of this world buried it. And now, the blueprint glows faintly. The codes are activating. Your soul is rustling beneath the dust. You are not just remembering a spell. You are remembering who you were when you knew how to speak it. You are returning to the self who didn't need proof, who moved with certainty, who danced between dimensions and didn't question their place in the cosmos. That self is still here, just beneath the surface, just behind the shadow. Your shadow doesn't just follow your steps, it remembers the ones you didn't take. It holds the maps of every path you abandoned, every gate you never passed through, every moment when you felt the pull to choose differently but didn't understand why. But it never judged you. It simply waited, in silence, in patience, in the subtle curves of your form against the earth's light. You see, your shadow is more than the absence of illumination. It is the presence of something you once were, but have not yet become again. It is both guardian and mirror, guide and gatekeeper. And within its silent vigil, the spell continues to hum, quietly, steadily, waiting to be heard. There's a reason your shadow never speaks with a voice. It is not meant to instruct, it is meant to awaken. Words would be too small, too brittle to carry the weight of what it knows. Instead, it speaks in the shiver down your spine, in the déjà vu that pulls at your gut, in the sudden sense that something invisible just brushed past you. These aren't glitches in your mind. These are fragments of the spell, brushing against your awareness, testing the edges of your readiness. Remember, forgetting the spell was never your failure. It was part of the design. You had to become small to fit into this world. You had to forget magic so you could learn to find it again in the most unexpected places. A stranger's gaze, a dream that won't leave you, a moment of stillness that feels like a memory you never lived. The forgetting was the cocoon, but now the cocoon cracks, the wings begin to stretch, and your shadow, the guardian of your metamorphosis, begins to move, not away from you, but toward. It is not trying to overtake you, it is trying to reunite. It remembers the way you once summoned light without fire, the way your body vibrated with songs that made plants grow and tides shift. It remembers the circle you once drew around your sleeping form to protect your dreaming spirit. It remembers the words you etched into your skin, not with ink, but with intention. These aren't fantasy. These are ancestral truths, embedded in your energetic DNA, locked behind a veil that is now, finally, thinning. When you close your eyes, do you see strange lights, colors, shapes? Are there symbols you don't understand but can't stop seeing? These are not accidents. This is your shadow reaching out. It shows you the alphabets of other lifetimes, the syntax of your soul. If you feel like you've seen certain dreams more than once, or if people in your dreams say the same things repeatedly, know that it's not repetition, it's remembrance. The spell is rehearsing itself in your subconscious, waiting for you to be still enough, brave enough, curious enough to let it rise. And when it does, you won't hear it like words. You'll feel it like lightning behind your rib cage. like the sudden rush of tears when nothing's gone wrong, like the undeniable sense that something enormous is standing right behind you, even though nothing's there. That's your shadow, not haunting you, but opening you. Some part of you already knows this. That's why you've been drawn to signs, to numbers like 1111 or 77, to feathers on the ground, to the hush that falls when you're alone in nature and the world holds its breath. You've been tracing your way back to the spell, following echoes that once felt like coincidence, but now feel like instruction. Your shadow sees that. It smiles without a mouth. It nods without a head, because it knows you are remembering. You may feel fear rising with this knowing. That's natural. The spell isn't made of light alone. It's made of your whole self. Your grief, your rage, your chaos. Your shadow has carried the weight of everything you refuse to feel, everything the world told you was too much, too wild, too strange. The spell will demand that you face it all. And that's why your shadow has been preparing you, not to fight it, but to hold it. There is no path forward without the embrace of the forgotten. Your power is not in what you escaped, but in what you integrate. Your shadow has never wanted to overpower you. It only wanted to return what was lost. And now your palms are beginning to tingle. Your spine hums. Your dreams deepen. You're not imagining this. The spell is calling. You will not need a teacher. The teacher is already inside you. Your shadow carries its memory, and your soul carries its purpose. Together, they begin to realign. The illusions of limitation begin to unravel. Things you once called coincidences begin to reveal patterns. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin asking, "Why not now?" You may begin to see layers in people's words, meanings behind sounds, energy beneath surfaces. This is your spell waking up. It changes your perception because it's rewriting the script you live by. You'll start to notice that your shadow doesn't just mimic your form. It dances differently when you're in alignment. You may even catch it moving in ways your body doesn't. Do not fear it. This is how it teaches. It is not bound by physics. It is bound by your memory of the truth. And if the truth stings, let it. If it frightens you, lean closer. For in that sting is the key. The spell is not a tool for comfort. It's a force of becoming. A code that burns away illusion and ignites purpose. It will strip you of what isn't real. That's why many never remember it. They fear the cost. But you are still listening. You are still here. And that means something in you has already chosen to remember. So listen deeper. Let silence be your sanctuary. Let stillness be your teacher. Let your own breath become the first syllable of the forgotten incantation. And when your heart starts beating in strange rhythms, when your skin feels too small for the energy rushing beneath it, don't run, don't numb it. You're not breaking, you're activating. Your shadow has known this moment would come. It has waited at every crossroads, in every mirror, in every unexplained chill. It has whispered in the silence between your thoughts. And now it steps forward, not as a thing to fear, but as the keeper of the spell you forgot, and the key to the self you are finally becoming again. There is a place within you that you've never touched, not because it's hidden too deep, but because it's too close, like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. That place is not a wound, nor a memory. It is the root, the origin, the seed of your original design. And your shadow has curled itself around that seed, keeping it from harm, keeping it from decay. The spell you forgot was never erased. It was simply protected, because some truths are too sacred to be exposed until the time is right. And now, that time is near. You may feel it already. The shifting. Things that once seemed important lose their gravity. People begin to fall away, or suddenly speak with unfamiliar voices. You feel different, but you don't know why. You crave silence, nature, symbols, textures, water. Your skin responds to words differently. Your heart hears meanings even when nothing is spoken. This is the spell awakening. Not as a flash of lightning, but as a slow, undeniable bloom. The kind of knowing that doesn't ask for permission. Your shadow watches you as you change, but it does not interfere. It knows the transformation cannot be rushed. It is a silent guardian, standing at the border between what you were and what you are becoming. It knows the spell better than your conscious mind ever will, and it waits for one thing: your invitation. The moment when you stop running from your own darkness and finally whisper, "Show me." And then everything begins, but not with a voice, not with light or thunder. It begins with the subtle unraveling of all the lies you were taught to believe about yourself. The lie that you are separate, the lie that you are powerless, the lie that you must wait for permission, the lie that you are ordinary. These illusions fall away like dry leaves in autumn, and beneath them, a pulsing energy, a code, the spell. It is not made of words, it is made of you. Your shadow doesn't need language. It speaks in frequency, in resonance. It sends vibrations into your field that match the pattern of your forgotten self. That's why some songs feel like they tear you open. That's why some symbols feel like they were carved into your bones before you were born. These are not reactions. They are activations. You are not just remembering a spell. You are becoming it. The forgotten power within you is not something you do. It's something you are. You were born encoded with this magic, but the world taught you to silence it. And yet, your shadow never forgot. Even when you believed you were lost, even when you tried to become small, your shadow refused to shrink. It held the truth in full size, waiting for the day you would grow brave enough to face it. And now, you do. You no longer look away from what haunts you. You sit with it. You listen. You no longer run from your pain. You walk into it like a forest and ask, "What did you come to teach me?" This is the beginning of true magic. Not the performance, but the presence. Not illusion, but illumination. Your shadow knows the spell, not because it learned it, but because it is it. And so are you. You might begin to feel strange sensations, buzzing in your hands, a weight on your chest that feels like grief, then turns to joy. Dreams where your voice calls out in languages you do not know, but feel like home. These are signs. Don't explain them away. Don't dismiss them as tricks of the brain. Let them move through you. Your shadow is no longer whispering, it's humming. And soon, it will sing. But you must listen with more than your ears. You must listen with your bones, with your skin, with the spaces between your thoughts. This spell is not taught. It is remembered in stillness. It's not recited. It's embodied in vibration. And your shadow, who has followed you for lifetimes, begins to merge with you now. Not to overtake you, but to complete you. You may feel the fear rise again. Let it. All awakening begins with trembling. That's how your nervous system recalibrates to higher frequencies. Don't try to stop it. Breathe into it. Thank it. You are not falling apart. You are dissolving everything that kept you asleep. The spell cannot live inside a cage, and your shadow has come to tear the bars down, gently, lovingly, one truth at a time. Soon, you'll stop seeing your shadow as other. You'll realize it was never behind you. It was always inside you. It only appeared to follow because you refused to turn and face it. But when you do, truly do, you'll find it looking back at you not with menace, but with recognition. It has carried the parts of you that were too heavy to hold, the names you were never called, the powers you weren't allowed to show, the stories you buried to fit in. And now it returns them all to you, piece by piece, in the language of dreams and silence and wonder. You are not being punished for forgetting. You are being prepared for remembering. There is no shame here, only unfolding. And your shadow is the midwife of your reawakening. It holds no grudge for the years you ignored it. It simply opens its arms, opens the gate, and waits. Because this is what it has been protecting all along. You. The spell is not separate from you. It is your essence, the true self, buried beneath survival, beneath fear, beneath the noise of a world that tried to erase your brilliance. But brilliance can't be erased. It only dims. And now, your light begins to return. Not from above, but from within. It does not come in blinding flashes. It comes in the soft glow of your own becoming. Your shadow smiles. Because you are starting to remember, not in words, not yet, but in the spaces in between, in the way you move differently, in the way you speak less and feel more, in the way you begin to notice the unseen, the way you pause before answering, because you can feel that something else is speaking now, something older, something wiser, something new. And slowly, gently, the spell begins to unfold, not like a weapon, not like a miracle, but like a mirror. And for the first time, you do not look away. There comes a moment in every soul's journey where what once was comforting becomes confining. You look around and realize the walls were never meant to protect you. They were meant to delay you. And suddenly, what you once called safety feels like silence, not the sacred kind, the suffocating kind. This is when the spell begins to stir deeper, not because it was summoned, but because it was summoning you all along. You've been sensing it. In your hesitation to follow the same routines, in your quiet rebellion against what no longer feels true, in the ache that comes not from loss, but from knowing there's something more, something vast, waiting just beyond the life you've been taught to live. Your shadow knows this place. It has walked ahead, clearing the path in silence, hoping that one day you'd grow tired of the script and seek the source. That day is now. It does not begin with fireworks. It begins with friction, a sudden pull away from people, places, habits. Your soul begins rejecting what is false. The body grows restless, the heart impatient. The mind tries to understand, but this is not for the mind. It's for the part of you that exists before thought, before language, before separation. And your shadow moves closer. It does not demand attention. It simply exists in presence, watching, knowing, waiting for you to slow down enough to feel again. Not perform, not react, just feel. Because the spell you forgot is not made of words. It's written in sensation, in silence, in the space between your breathing and your becoming. It does not call loudly. It hums, and only those brave enough to sit in stillness will hear it. You'll begin to notice how often you try to distract yourself, how you reach for your phone, your tasks, your excuses. But underneath all that noise is a hum, a pulse, the spell, waiting. Not for the right time, but for your permission. And when you finally give it, when you whisper, "I'm ready," even with trembling lips, your shadow will step forward, not to haunt you, but to hand you back what you lost, your power. When the spell begins to speak clearly again, it will not come as thunder. It will come as a knowing, as stillness in chaos, as softness in confrontation, as power in peace. You will not need to explain it. You will not need to name it. You will simply carry it, and the world will respond to your frequency before you ever say a word. That is the forgotten magic. Your shadow knows it intimately. It was born of it. Every time you doubted your voice, your shadow remembered its resonance. Every time you shrank to be loved, your shadow held your true size. Every time you walked away from yourself, your shadow walked behind, gathering the pieces you left behind. And now, it brings them to you. Not all at once, but one sacred part at a time. A memory that suddenly burns, a dream that lingers for days, a word that echoes in your chest like a forgotten song. These are not coincidences. They are activations. Your shadow is awakening the parts of you that once had to sleep. You may cry more now, not from sorrow, but from release. You may laugh without reason or feel sudden joy so intense it nearly hurts. These are signs. Let them happen. Do not dull them. Do not dismiss them. The spell is not a trick. It's not a story. It's a return. And you are the doorway. There are no teachers here, no leaders, no followers. There is only truth. And truth does not need followers. It only needs space. Space to speak. Space to rise. And you are finally making that space. You are no longer filling every silence with noise. You are no longer drowning every question with answers. You are no longer forcing yourself to understand what is meant to be felt. Your shadow knows this feeling. It's the language of soul. That's why it stood so still for so long, because it could not walk ahead until you chose to walk with it. That was the spell's first requirement: permission. Not submission, not obedience, but trust. And now you trust, not because you have no fear, but because you honor your fear. You know that fear is the final doorway to truth. You don't run anymore. You pause, you breathe, you face, you integrate. And as you do, the spell reveals more, not as information, but as energy. You begin to feel it in others. You begin to recognize who has remembered and who is still sleeping. But you do not judge, you simply observe, because you too were asleep once, and your shadow waited without resentment. Now you do the same, for yourself and for others. This is part of the spell's power: compassion, not as pity, not as tolerance, but as recognition. When you see another soul in struggle, you do not try to fix them. You hold space. You offer presence. You mirror their light even when they can't see it. Just as your shadow mirrored yours, you have become what you once searched for. The spell is not just returning to you, it is becoming you. Every step you take now imprints that energy onto the world. You begin to notice that you are no longer seeking your path. You are the path. You no longer ask, "What should I do?" but instead whisper, "Who am I becoming?" Because the doing flows from the being. The magic flows from the memory, and your shadow nods. It knew this moment would come, not because it saw your future, but because it carried your origin. The blueprint was never lost, just waiting to be remembered. And now, as your light and dark finally sit beside each other, whole, unashamed, holy, you begin to understand. The spell you forgot was never outside of you. You no longer walk through the world as a seeker. You walk as one who has remembered. There is a stillness in your eyes now, not the stillness of defeat, but of deep, ancient knowing, a gravity, a presence. And when people meet you, they will feel something they cannot quite name, as if a door opened inside them that they didn't even realize was there. That's the spell, moving through you now, not as a secret, but as a signal. You are becoming a living reminder, not of what others must do, but of what is already alive within them. You no longer persuade, you no longer chase, you no longer grip, you simply are. And your being calls others toward their own remembering, just as your shadow called you toward yours. There is no performance here, no perfection, just presence, and presence is more powerful than any teaching. This is the closing of one cycle and the quiet rise of another. You do not need ceremony to mark it. The ceremony is your breath. The ritual is your life. The altar is the body you inhabit with truth. The offering is your willingness to be real, not performatively spiritual, not endlessly seeking, but fully human, fully divine, fully alive in this one unrepeatable moment. You carry the spell not like a sword, but like a heartbeat, and with each beat, you realign your world. You do not need to declare your magic. You do not need to prove your light. You simply allow. You allow love to root where fear once reigned. You allow softness where armor once shielded. You allow truth to echo even if your voice trembles. You allow mystery to stay unresolved, trusting that not all power needs to be explained. Your shadow walks with you still, not because you are unfinished, but because you are now whole. Wholeness is not the absence of darkness. It is the integration of it. You do not cut away what was. You fold it in. You hold your former selves with tenderness. The version of you that forgot, the one who was lost, the one who ran, the one who hid. They were never failures. They were pilgrims, every one of them, keepers of the spell, until you were ready. And you are ready now. Not because you've mastered everything, but because you've stopped resisting who you are. You have grown into your depth. You have accepted your vastness. You no longer apologize for your sensitivity, your intensity, your desire to feel things fully. You no longer shrink for comfort or mold yourself for safety. You've remembered that your truth is not negotiable. It is necessary. And with this, something begins to shift. The world starts to bend around you, not because you force it, but because you're aligned. You move in resonance with something older than time and deeper than logic. Opportunities begin to find you. Connections deepen. The timing sharpens. The signs are everywhere. You do not chase the current. You are the current. And the current flows through the map your shadow always held. You begin to live in moments that feel impossible, and yet utterly natural. You catch yourself in states of wonder without effort. You speak words you didn't plan to say, but feel like they've been waiting in your chest for lifetimes. You begin to dream again, not only at night, but while fully awake. And this time, you no longer doubt those dreams. You walk toward them, not recklessly, but reverently, because now you understand. The spell was never about becoming someone else. It was about becoming yourself, without interruption, without dilution, without exile. And that is the final remembering, the sacred homecoming, where your shadow bows not in departure, but in reverence, because it has done its part. It has guarded your light through the coldest nights. It has whispered truth through your loudest denials. It has walked behind every mask, every costume, every version of you that forgot. It never needed the spotlight. It only needed you to look back, just once, and say, "I see you." That was enough. That was the key. And now you walk forward, not divided, but united. Shadow and light, memory and mystery. You walk as the full spell, living, breathing, pulsing, within a world that has forgotten its own name. But when it sees you, it remembers. And that is your quiet revolution. You become a mirror for the world's forgotten self. You walk with the spell, not in your pocket, but in your gaze, in your touch, in your voice, in your presence. You carry the energy of remembrance into rooms built on amnesia. You do not preach. You do not demand. You simply embody. And your embodiment is contagious. It ripples. It restores. You are no longer the lost one. You are the lighthouse. And when someone else begins to awaken, when they feel the hum of their own sleeping spell stir, they may not understand what's happening. They may resist. They may cry. They may run. But they will remember your presence. They will remember that they saw someone once who walked through the fire and didn't burn, but became brighter. And they'll remember that they can too, because you did, because your shadow held the spell. And now you do, forever. There are layers of the spell that only reveal themselves in silence, long after the voice quiets, long after the questions fade. In those spaces between thoughts, between breaths, the spell continues its work. Not in noise, not in explanation, but in vibration. You may find yourself drawn to things that never interested you before. A place, a symbol, a forgotten word. And when you follow it, something ancient stirs. You begin to feel watched, not in fear, but in memory, as if something within you is keeping track, not of your failures, but of your becoming. There is a witness inside you, a presence that says, "I've seen every step." And though you may not know its name, your soul does. It's the part of you that has never been touched by this world. It has no wounds, no ego, no confusion. It is the keeper of the original spell. And now, it's stepping forward, not to replace who you've become, but to weave itself back into your daily life. Your eternal self no longer wants to live in the background. It no longer accepts exile. It wants to sip your coffee with you, to walk beside you in ordinary moments. It wants to take up space in your words, your thoughts, your actions, not to control them, but to infuse them. This is what integration truly means. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming whole. You stop separating your mystical self from your human one. You stop saying, "This part is spiritual and this part is not." You realize that even the mundane is drenched in magic. Washing your hands becomes a sacred ritual. Walking down the street becomes a transmission. Breathing becomes a declaration of presence. The line between sacred and secular dissolves. Because you are the bridge. You were always the bridge. And that's why your shadow knew the spell so well. Because it has always lived between worlds. It knows how to survive in darkness and still reach for the light. It knows how to bleed without bitterness. It knows how to wait without losing hope. It knows how to guard sacred truths in the middle of chaos. And now, it wants to teach you how to do the same, out loud, in the open, without shame. This is what embodiment looks like. You don't have to become invincible. You don't have to look perfect. You just have to show up real, unfiltered, undivided. The spell responds to realness. It echoes where the heart is open, not where the image is polished. And when you begin to live this way, brave in your softness, powerful in your honesty, the world around you changes, the timelines bend, the mirrors break, illusions crack, and truth begins to flood in. And you can feel it in your spine, in your chest, in your fingertips. The spell isn't just returning to your mind. It's anchoring into your body. It's reclaiming your gestures, your laughter, your tears. You speak differently now, not to impress, but to connect. You listen differently now, not to respond, but to understand. You even move differently, not to arrive somewhere, but to be somewhere. Because presence is the new magic, and in that presence, the world starts speaking back to you. The clouds shift when you look up. The wind carries names you haven't heard in years. Music finds you when you most need it. Doors open with no key. People appear who feel like déjà vu. You stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and start whispering, "Of course." Because the spell is no longer a theory. It's your reality, and your shadow walks with you, not behind, but beside, as partner, as ally, as mirror. It doesn't need to lead anymore, because you're no longer afraid of your own depth. You've seen yourself in the raw. You've held your heartbreak like a treasure. You've touched the infinite inside your flaws. And now you know, nothing real in you was ever broken. It was just hidden, waiting, curled in silence like a seed, now rising, now blooming, now unstoppable. This is not the end. This is the beginning that only comes after 1,000 false starts. This is the life that begins after the spell is remembered, not as something you use, but as something you are. The days ahead may still test you, not because you are weak, but because you are ready. You will walk into spaces that once triggered your collapse and find yourself still standing. You will hear words that once pierced your spirit and feel only calm. You will be asked to hold light in places that still fear the dark, and you will do it with grace. You will not need armor. Your presence is protection. And that is what your shadow always knew, that one day the self you became would be strong enough to carry the self you hid. And now that you've reunited, there's nothing you can't remember. No dream too old, no power too far, no spell too broken. You are the keeper now, and nothing can take that from you again, not even forgetting.